Hi everyone, this is Ashley with CT Media Digitals. I'm going to do a tutorial on an edit for my new winter white digital backdrops in Photoshop. I already have the digital backdrop open that I'm going to use. I am going to open the person or the other image that I'm going to put into it. So we're pretty much going to be going from studio photo to outdoor winter photo. Okay, so I'm going to resize. This is one of the hardest parts, is trying to scale the image. I just kind of try to look what's in the digital backdrop. So you can see there's kind of like tire marks right here. So she's obviously not going to be like bigger than a car. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to place her here. So we need to subtract her from this backdrop first. So I'm going to make sure that this layer is selected, and I'm going to go to my quick selection tool and select subject. And then I'm going to duplicate that layer and create a layer mask, and then unlock my background. I'm just going to drag my background in between those two layers, and then check again the size of her, which I think we can bring her down a little bit more, but not too much. Okay. Alright, so first things first, I want to kind of match the tones of the image. The tones of the digital backdrop are a lot cooler than the tones on my subject, so I'm going to balance them both out a little bit. I'm going to create an adjustment layer, color balance layer on my subject. I'm going to click this clipping mask right here so it only applies to her, and I'm going to make her a little bit cooler. Bring down those reds and those yellows, and then I'm also going to create a layer, a color balance layer above my digital backdrop. I'm going to click that clipping mask for that too, so we're only applying this to the digital backdrop, and then I'm going to make that a little bit warmer. So kind of try to meet in the middle here a little bit, because I don't want to bring down the warmness too much on my subject, and I don't want to add too much warmth to a winter backdrop. So healthy medium here. Okay, so zoom in here. So obviously you want like a back for these digital backdrops, specifically they're backlit. So you want a backlit image, which is why I'm using the image that I pulled in here. And then I want to get rid of these, the floor pretty much out of this. I'm going to go to my layer mask right here that's on my subject layer, and I'm going to use a black soft brush at about 25% opacity, and then I'm just going to brush off little by little. So these are all different clicks. I'm not just moving this along. And this is just going to blend. Now I'm going to use a smaller brush. Oops, that's my opacity, not my brush. Over here, because I want kind of a thinner. There we go. I don't want it to feather as much on that part. And now we're going to add some shadows back in here. So if you erase them a little bit, that's okay. If you need to brush it back on, you can just press X on your keyboard, or switch between your black and your white over here and brush it back in if you accidentally delete something that you didn't want to. Okay, so next I want to keep some of the shadow on her gown, but her gown has a lot of shadow for this particular image. So I can do a couple of things. I can come over to the image itself, and I can use my dodge tool, and I can get rid of the shadows like that. I don't recommend doing that, but I'm just going to show it for the sake. Actually, I'm going to right click here and rasterize that layer. That's going to allow you to work with it a little bit better. And you could just brush it in that way. The only reason I don't prefer this is because you can't brush, you can't take it away. So if you do too much, you're just going to have to undo, 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 and then try to do it over again. So what I would do, I'm going to go to my history, get rid of all that dodge. I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to put it on screen blending mode. And I'm going to hold down, go to my brush here. And I'm going to leave it on 25% opacity for now. I'm going to hold down Alt on my keyboard and I'm going to click like a lighter color on the gown. And then I'm going to brush that on. And now this way I can do it little by little. I can decrease the opacity on the layer if I want to. Say if it was too much, I can bring it down a little. And then I can also create a layer mask and brush it off if I want. So I'm going to just kind of get it to where all my shadows look a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to create a layer mask. I'm going to use my black brush on like 10%, and then I'm going to brush some of the shadow back on her arm there and right there. Okay. All right. So I want to add some shadow on the ground. So instead of working above our subject layer, we're going to work above our digital backdrop. So I'm going to click on my digital backdrop layer again. I'm going to create another layer. And since we already had that color balance layer, we don't have to create a clipping mask, because if you're in between the background you're working on and a clipping mask you already made, it's already going to automatically create that clipping mask for you. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to change my blending mode on that layer to multiply. Brush, about 25%. We're going to do a soft brush still. I'm going to hold down Alt on my keyboard and I'm going to click a darker part of the snow down here. And then I'm going to slightly brush in some shadow on the ground. Okay. And then I'm going to create another layer. I do my shadows on different layers because, as like before, I want to be able to get rid of them if I need to in an easy way. Okay, so multiply blending mode. I'm going to click a darker gray here. And then I'm going to bring down my brush size. And then I'm going to work putting more shadow directly under her gown here. I haven't done one of these edits in a long time, but I do have a lot of them, of older ones on my YouTube channel. Let me zoom out here, see how we're doing. Okay, so I'm going to come back up to my screen layer. I'm going to add another one. I think I'm going to do lighten blending mode. Play around with blending modes too. Click a light. I'm going to bring up some more of these shadows on the bottom of her gown because they're not blending very well. This is a very bright image, so you don't want a lot of shadows on your subject. I think I'm going to lighten her up completely. Okay, and then I'm gonna come back down here. I'm gonna create a layer mask on that. And I'm going to brush some of that away. Okay. All right, I'm going to add another layer above her screen. I'm going to select her skin color, and I'm going to add a little bit of light to her. There we go. Okay, I like how the top looks. I don't like the bottom of the dress as much, which is usually the case because the bottom of the dress is the hardest to blend. So I'm going to actually, okay, I'm going to brush off this part a little bit because it's like tulle, it's see-through. So I'm already on 25%. I don't like that. I'm gonna use like 10%. Brush some of that off. Okay, and then I'm going to bring down my shadows a little bit. I don't think I needed as much as I added in there. There we go. Okay, that looks a lot better. Actually, there's still a lot of like red and magenta on her too, which I want to adjust that. I'm going to add another layer above her on multiply blending mode. I'm going to grab a dark color of the dress and I'm just going to brush in a little bit of shadow on the bottom of the gown right here because it's not blending very well. There we go. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to fix the magenta color on her that's like really clashing with the backdrop. So I'm going to click on her and I'm going to add another color balance layer. And I'm gonna, maybe if I just drag, there we go, a little more towards my cyan. Don't want to go too much towards green, but let's see. Okay, that looks a lot better. There we go. I just wanted her dress to match a lot more with the backdrop without having to do like any painting or anything. Okay, now I'm happy with this. I'm going to tweak the bottom of the dress a little bit, but I want to do that merged with the backdrop and I want to add a little bit of blur around her. So I'm going to right click. I'm done with all my layers, so I'm going to flatten. I'm going to duplicate that layer so my work is on a separate layer, and I'm going to take some of my snow from the image. I'm just going to use my clone stamp, and I'm just going to brush a little bit of the snow. I do not want 100%. I want 25%. A little bit of the snow onto the bottom of her gown. Not a lot. I don't know why my computer just dinged at me. And this is also going to kind of smooth it a little bit and add a little bit of blur to blend, because you don't want your subject to look copy and pasted. And this would be a lot easier if it wasn't a tulle gown. But for some reason I always pick the tutorials that have like the hardest gown to edit. Okay. That should look a lot better. That blends a lot better for this photo because it's already, as you can see, like the depth of field, like right along this line, which I should have said that in the tutorial, you want to put them on the line that's in focus. You don't want to have her standing like all the way like in the blurry areas. She needs to be on this plane of field right here, where it's in focus, because that's what a camera would do. So that's why blending down here, it needs to be blurred because it's in the blurred section of the photo. So with that being said, I liked what I did there, so I'm going to flatten again, and I'm going to duplicate again, and I'll grab my blur tool. And I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to add some blur. I'm not going to add it up here too much because that's kind of a little bit more in focus. I'm just going to focus on the bottom of the dress right now. Okay, and then I'm going to go around the very edge of my subject, and I'm going to do what I like to call like runoff blur, where the very, 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 very edge blends in with the background, so it's not copy and pasted look. And this is, you don't have to do this, but I think it helps to blend the subject in with the backdrop. Like this back here would be blurred a little because it's on the back of her gown. And sure everybody has multiple different ways that they do this and how they edit in Photoshop, but this is my channel, so I'm showing how I do it. I'm a heavy hand editor. Okay, and then we want to blur this back here on the edge. Okay. Okay. Now, I gotta say can't forget to mention the blur on the ground back here. I didn't need, there was all, this blur right here makes sense for where she's standing. When you're adding shadow for your gown, if you're adding them in a part of the image where it's very bright behind them, you need to add that shadow in for their body as well. This image didn't get to show that, but, so what I would do before I flattened it, I would create a layer just like before, and I would clip it to the individual and then put it on multiply blending mode and use a soft brush at 25% opacity, and I would click a dark part of the snow and then brush in a shadow, like kind of like triangle shape to their body, and then create a layer mask on it and use your black brush bigger at like 15% and then taper off that shadow. I can actually leave this shadow because it works. But I would do that before you flatten. I didn't do that because I didn't really need to, but should have included that for the tutorial. And then there's a couple of bright spots that I want to fix up. So I'm going to add another layer, multiply, smaller brush, 15% opacity is fine. Oops. I'm going to just select the color of the snow right here, and I'm just going to brush that on, make it a little bit darker to match what I'm going for here. Zoom out. Bring that down just a little. Okay. I think that looks good. And if you wanted to add like a filter over, if you want to flatten the whole thing, I like to do this sometimes too, and add like a whole color filter or something over the image just to kind of tie it all together. You could just add like a solid color layer and do like I can do like a little bit of a warm haze over it like that, and do let's try soft light blending mode, and I can turn that down just a little bit and see how that added just kind of like a warm haze. And then I'm going to add in a levels layer and kind of just deepen my shadows a little bit. Flatten, and I would be done with this image. I think it looks very pretty. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. These are using my winter white backdrops in Photoshop. It's just a pack of 4. I will link them in the description. If you want more free tutorials like this one, please be sure to subscribe to the channel to be notified when I upload new videos.